Be part of our brand. Leadership for God and country.
Give your own kind motivational.
What did you say?
In the last project, I was doing that.
Leadership TV for God and country.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome to the Thursday edition of your favorite breakfast show on television, Inside Nigeria. My name is Winifred Ogbebo, and I'm going to be taking you on a review of some papers, select papers, on this segment review of national newspapers. As I said earlier, my name is Winifred Ogbebo, and of course, we like to flag up with Nigeria's most influential newspaper, Leadership. As you can see, I have an array of newspapers for review this morning. Leadership is leading with a story on the labor protest yesterday all across the nation, and it says hardship. Tinubu weighs in as protest rock states Abuja. Hardship. Tinubu weighs in as protest rock states Abuja. Labor may suspend action after meeting with president. We can no longer breathe, workers tell federal government. Question 1 trillion naira subsidy savings. NANS appeals for 1 week to intervene. I'll take that again. Hardship. Tinubu weighs in as protest rock states Abuja. Labor may suspend action after meeting with president. We can no longer breathe, workers tell FG. Question 1 trillion naira subsidy savings. NANS appeals for 1 week to intervene. Of course, we have pictures of the protesters yesterday in Lagos, Enugu, and Abuja. We have Niger, ECOWAS defense chiefs meet. Nigeria cuts power supply. Niger, ECOWAS defense chiefs meet. Nigeria cuts power supply. Experts query NCAA's director's role in Lagos plane crash. We have no control over fuel price. Forest, CBN test rep. And of course, we move over that above those stories to APC chair NEC to ratify Ganduje's appointment today. APC chair NEC to ratify Ganduje's appointment today. Of course, above that, we have pictures of the new ministerial nominees submitted to the National Assembly yesterday. We have Simon Lalong, the immediate past governor of Plateau State. We have Atiku Bagudu, also of Kebbi State, who was a former governor. Kebbi State. We have Bello Matawale, of immediate past governor of Zamfara. We have Adegboyega Oyetola, immediate state past Osun State governor, or state of Osun, as Aregbesola renamed it. We have Miriam Shetty. She's a doctor, of course, from Kano State, and of course, she's also in her 30s. We have Heniken Lopo Biri, also a former minister, is from Bayelsa State. These are some of the nominees submitted to the National Assembly yesterday. We move over to the page 3 of Leadership, where we have our stand. Our stand is the editorial for the day, and the editorial topic is that the poor may breathe. That the poor may breathe. And for how the poor should breathe, you will have to log on to the website of Leadership to read more on that editorial, that the poor may breathe. From there, we move over to the back page of the paper, being blunt with Muazu Elaze, the stench in FCC. The stench in FCC. For more on that, of course, there has been so much going on in FCC over the revelations of job racketeering in the commission. For more on this, log on to the website of Leadership, www.leadership.ng. We also have inside stories and the continuation of the headline stories. Just before we leave it, we have to sing Ghana Must Go. Ghana Must Go say protesters beat Oyo civil servants for defying NLC directive. And guess what the reply is? Blows are part of the struggle. That is interesting one. That is an interesting one. For more on that, as I said earlier, log on to the website of Leadership, www.leadership.ng. From Leadership, we have this day. This day says, with Tinubu's promise of Port Harcourt refinery ready by December, Labour suspends protest, extends dialogue. With Tinubu's promise of Port Harcourt refinery ready by December, Labour suspends protest, extends dialogue. Federal government to negotiate new salary award. Senate intervenes, promises resolution. Labour threatens to occupy courts over contempt charge. Federal government must cut down cost of governance, says TUC. Rivers workers to president, allow us to breathe, fix refineries. And just like Leadership, we have pictures of the ministerial nominees as submitted yesterday, and that were 19 ministers. And at ministerial screening, Fagbemi chides DSS over handling of corruption cases. At ministerial screening, Fagbemi chides DSS over handling of corruption cases. He's also one of the ministerial nominees. We have above that, we have Tinubu canvasses stronger economic defense bilateral cooperation with UK. Tinubu canvasses stronger economic defense bilateral cooperation with UK. British government reiterates support for ECOWAS moves to reinstate Niger president. We don't have control over fuel price, dollar, says CBN. We move above the masthead of this day. Nigeria's military on alert. Calls power supply to Niger as ECOWAS continues dialogue. Tinubu throws country into darkness, calls power supply. Commissioner says failing to act may diminish regional bloc. Dismisses threats from Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau. Hints on standby force to protect democracy in West Africa. From that headline stories, we are on to the editorial page of this day. We have to see what this day's stand is today. This day's editorial is on death on the Mediterranean Sea, talking about trafficking issue. Death on the Mediterranean Sea. The authorities should pay more attention to the economy. Nigerian authorities must address the conditions that create the desperation to leave the country for unknown destinations. For more on that, you have to log on to the website of this day, and for inside stories as well, www.thisdaylive.com. And from that this day, we have Daily Sun next on our menu. Daily Sun says mass protests rock Nigeria. Federal government commits to fix refinery by December. Mass protests rock Nigeria. Federal government commits to fix refinery by December. Angry protesters pull down NAS gates, take over streets nationwide. Academic, administrative activities stored on campuses. NLC-TUC promised to storm court over contempt charge. Because just like every other paper, like Leadership, we have the picture of protesters yesterday. We have ministerial nomination, Bagudu, Lalong, Oyetola, Matawale, 15 others make Tinubu's second list. Northwest, Southwest get lion's share, Southeast only 5 slots. Lagos NMA declares indefinite strike in 3 hospitals over colleagues' death. What an unfortunate death yesterday. Actually, a doctor died in the lift, and of course, the lift pulled down from 10-story building down. Surinamese man arrested with 9.9 kg cocaine, concealed in condoms, get 13 years in jail. Surinamese man arrested with 9.9 kg cocaine, concealed in condoms, get 13 years in jail. Farmers urge federal government to collaborate with stakeholders on food security plan. Man dies protecting son from collapsed building in Akure. So unfortunate. And beside the masthead of Daily Sun, Niger ECOWAS defense chiefs meet in Abuja. And just we have to go to the editorial page of Daily Sun just before we move on to the next paper. And today's the editorial is on agenda for new ministers. Agenda for new ministers. Find out what the agenda is on the editorial page of Daily Sun as you log on to the website www.sunnynewsonline.com. From Daily Sun, we have the Punch newspaper on the next on our menu. The Punch: subsidy protest, banks offices shut amid rallies, labor demands 200,000 wage. Harsh subsidy protest, banks offices shut amid rallies, labor demands 200,000 wage. NLC-TUC leaders hold emergency neck today after special meeting with Tinubu National Assembly. Federal government use labor leader says protests will be suspended. How protesters broke National Assembly gates. We also have the picture of protesters yesterday in Abuja. Nigeria cuts power supply. ECOWAS vows to confront junta. Federal government deletes 18 illegal loan apps. 2 killed, many abducted in Niger terror attack. PDP inaugurates campaign councils for Bayelsa, Imo, Kogi polls. Lagos probe doctor's death in hospital elevator. Colleagues shun work. Suspended Plateau local government chairman asks police to unseal offices. And Abodiman said we have Oyetola, Lalong, Bagudu. 16 others make second ministerial list. These are the headlines on today's The Punch newspaper, August 3, 2023. Just before we move to the next paper on the menu, let's see what Punch editorial is saying. And the editorial is arresting the coup epidemic in West Africa. Arresting the coup epidemic in West Africa. How do you arrest the coup epidemic? Find that in the website of the Punch newspaper, www.punchng.com. From the Punch, blueprint is next on our menu. Blueprints leading with fuel subsidies presidency. Fuel subsidy removal. Labour met Tinubu resolved to stop further protest presidency. We will take president's commitments to NEC, NLC, TUC. Give us 1 week to intervene. Senate begs protesting workers. Lagos wants 30,000 palliative for 6 months. With fuel subsidy removal, Tinubu encouraging job creation in private sector. Malachi. 1.6 million Bono Adamawa Yobe children out of school. UNICEF. FCCPC clamps down on InsideNIGERIA. 17 other loan apps. Kidnappers invade Espora Senators farm. Key manager. Ministerial nominees Oyetola, Lalong, Gedam, Matawale, Bagudu bounce back. Tinubu appeases Abuja natives with Gisalo. Above this, we have Customs FOUA intercepts ballistic materials, pistols, bulletproof orders. Find out more on page 23 of the paper. Passengers stole 1 million naira caught aboard Abuja Port Harcourt flights. And we just want to have a sneak preview of the editorial of Blueprint just before we move to the next paper. And the editorial is on the World Bank's poverty benchmark. The World Bank's poverty benchmark. For more on that, log on to the website www.blueprint.ng. And of course, I'm on to the next paper, which is The Guardian. The Guardian says cabinet size near 70 as Tinubu ignores calls for link government. Cabinet size near 70 as Tinubu ignores calls for link government. We have pictures of the demonstrators, of the protesters yesterday on the page of The Guardian. Of course, we also had a picture of President Tinubu insert. After Tinubu's parley, Labour federal government in fresh legal tangle over protest. After Tinubu's parley, Labour FG in fresh legal tangle over protest. Protest as 40 elevator kills doctor in Lagos hospital. Protest as 40 elevator kills doctor in Lagos hospital. Forensic experts lament rising digital fraud, seek federal government's intervention. Abubakar leads ECOWAS mission for negotiation with Niger junta. Buhari Osinbajo absent as APC NEC ratifies Ganduje today. Military coup looking inward at democracy, governance in Africa. That is the editorial on The Guardian today. Of course, it's starting from the cover of The Guardian. Military coup looking inward at democracy, governance in Africa. And for more on that, log on to the website of The Guardian, www.theguardian.ng. From The Guardian, The Nation newspaper is next. The Nation says Labour talks with Tinubu on cost of living fruitful. Labour talks with Tinubu on cost of living fruitful. NLC president made pledges on refineries, wage award orders. Business as usual in government private offices. Banks on protest day. Protesters break down National Assembly gates. Above that, we have international electricity customers owing $16.11 million bill, says NEC. International electricity customers owing $16.11 million bill, says NEC. Ministers Bagudu, Matawale, Oyetola, 16 others on supplementary list. And above the masthead, we have $150 million spent on fuel importation monthly, says Central Bank. How government can win corruption cases by Fagbemi. Alake controls social media. ECOWAS jails up for military action in Niger. APC NEC to decide fate of National Working Committee members today. And of course, we move over to the editorial on The Nation. The editorial today is on editorial is the first editorial is Now Time to Talk. Now time to talk. Resident doctors and government should return to negotiation table. The doctors have sufficiently made their point. The table should be set for negotiation now. For more, actually log on to the website. And of course, the second editorial is on gas flaring debt. Gas flaring debt. IOC is willing to do business in Nigeria must be ready to play by the rules. Companies wishing to do business in the country must be willing to comply with laws guiding their operations. The government should no longer handle matters such as this with levity. For more on that on gas flaring and the Now Time to Talk, you have to log on to the website of The Nation newspaper, www.thenationonlineng.net. The Vanguard is next, and many the Vanguard list with the protests that took place yesterday across the nation. It says Labour protest hardship. Labour protest hardship as Tinubu weighs in. Federal government moves to placate Labour with wage award orders. Promises to reject steering committee to roll out CNG vehicles. We are returning to negotiations with federal government. Labour. Cut down cost. Use made in Nigeria vehicles. Labour tells NAS. Protesters pull down NAS gate. Senate begs Labour to suspend strike. Promises to look demands in 1 week. Look into demands in 1 week. Blast police for locking gates against Labour. Federal government files contempt proceedings against NLC TUC. Lawyers differ on contempt proceedings by FG. Because we have a picture of President Tinubu flanked by NLC and TUC leaders yesterday. Of course, we also have Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde in tow. How infrastructure decay hampers judicial system. Buba polls will win Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa, PDP boosts. APC crisis, anxiety over possible dissolution of National Working Committee. No World Cup bonus for Super Falcons, NFF. And of course, we move over to the masthead. Stories above the masthead. Nigeria cuts power supply to Niger Republic. UK's £38 million aid making a difference in Northeast. Foreign Secretary. Ministerial nominees, 5 ex-governors, 14 others make Tinubu's second list. Know your nominees. Economic hardship. Workers withdraw 3 billion naira from pension savings. Stories on page 19 of Vanguard. For more stories on Vanguard, log on to the website preview on their commentary. The commentary is also the editorial, and of course the commentary is on FG and Labour must work together. FG and Labour must work together. And with that, we move over to the last paper. Okay, incidentally, that is the last paper for review in this first segment of the program Inside Nigeria. Till we come back with the second segment. Actually, incidentally, my Thursday guest, a political analyst, is a public affairs analyst, is a political scientist, and a public affairs analyst. Olamilekan Adefole is already in the house studio. Don't go away. Just stay tuned when we come back.
Leadership TV for God and country.
Of your show Inside Nigeria, reaching you on Leadership Television. My name is Winifred Okwebo, your host of the program, and of course my Thursday guest is already in the house. He's a political scientist. He's also a public affairs analyst. Olamilekan Adefole. Thank you so much once again.
Thanks for having me.
It's a bright new day. Yes, yesterday the protest, as Labour promised, did they deliver?
Definitely. Interestingly, the protest went wide across the country.
Yes, I was surprised even in the north.
Exactly.
We saw protests in Kano. It was really immense.
State in Katsina.
But I was a bit surprised because they normally they don't participate in protests.
They do. It's just that this one came at the last hour. Nobody expected them to.
Yeah, actually, because even at the dying minute, people were calling to find out is the protest going to hold on.
Definitely.
That means it would have been more effective. But
the 10 minutes engaging into the joining the protest was as a result of they discovered that it's a collective bargaining. It's something that everybody must put.
Yes, because everybody's feeling the crunch.
Exactly. The initial address was that the chairman who, of the northern part, because even the southern part they will not participate in the protest, but later on they discovered that it was for a joint collective purpose.
Yes.
And what they were afraid was the elongation of the protest. Because they on their own discovered that if they elongate it, it will also cause more problems for the people. Let us just do a warning strike of a kind, and that's what really happened across the country.
So how effective was it?
Definitely, it drew the ear of the government, and you can see immediately the president called for a meeting between TUC, NLC, and some stakeholders, and definitely what NLC put on the table was on the refinery issue, because of all the policy that the government have done, especially the Monday broadcast or Tuesday broadcast, never made mention about the refinery.
Exactly.
That's the way the Labour has been answering that. Because if we check the initial discussion about the 7 items they're going to talk about, wage increase, minimum wage increase, release of grains, release of this and that, refinery was one of the top agenda from Labour and that. We must make sure
it's not them working, because at the end of the day we are still going to contend with this high pump price for a long time to go when the refineries, and as a matter of fact there were reports that Dangote refinery is actually going to come off stream in April or thereabout 2025.
Definitely.
And not this year as speculated.
Because one thing many people have not understand about Dangote refinery is a 3-sector refinery. Is that petrochemical, it has fertilizer, then you have the crude oil refinery for petrol and the rest. So the two have been working, but the other and last aspect is not working, which is to produce petrol, to refine crude oil into petrol. That's not the one that is working. But they are producing other items, fertilizer, petrochemical. They are producing the port. The one for PMS is not working for now. But that is not my own issue that we need to stress on. Although we know that it was a promise that many people thought that it's going to save us from.
Many people were wondering why the president, the immediate past president, was so much in a haste to commission a project that was not actually completed.
No, that
80% completed.
Definitely, it was around 65% completion. That was the stand. But it's part of the way of getting the applaud of a nation, especially with our 25% from the government investment in that particular project. And again, it would have been erroneous if President Buhari did not go into commissioning the project. Then it will leave it for Tinubu to commission. So he wanted to take the credit, and that's why they quickly go into that ceremony. But we believe that at the end of the day, we just hope that by 2025 it will come on soon, especially the production and the refining of PMS for Nigerian consumption. And we should also remember that Dangote target is the West African coast, not just Nigerian market alone. It's targeting Sierra Leone, Ghana, Mali, Niger, all those West African countries. It's targeting them. So that's why their president came. About 7 of them came for the ceremony. So we just hope that by next 2025 it will really come on soon.
Now, President Tinubu has promised Labour that by December the Port Harcourt refinery will be up and running, including the increasing of wage.
Exactly.
How do you see it?
Definitely, that's the most important thing. Increasing of wage means there are going to be indication of minimum wage to be increased. And as we have discussed on this platform, between 50,000 to 200,000.
No, they already started with 200. Labour is demanding for 200.
The 200 is the benchmark table they are putting. But we know that because of the situation of some state, leaving for federal government alone, some federal government workers are already enjoying 200,000 as part of their salary, although it may not be your starting point as a salary. No, what I mean is that some federal government agencies pay above 200,000 to their staff.
But it depends on the grade that you are. When the Labour is demanding for 200, that means starting point for them.
Starting point. But what I'm trying to point out is that
not maybe a director or assistant director. Now we are looking at the starting point.
What I'm even pointing
for even a cleaner.
That is the federal government employ a cleaner, because we know most of the cleaning aspect of government work
contracted that.
So that's one. But what I'm trying to point out is this 200,000 is just the benchmark that this is where we want to start. But we know that at the end of the day, because of some state government that we want to negotiate that we can't pay 200,000 because of our wage bill of every month. Can we go for 100? Can we go for 50? Can we go for 80? And you see the policies they have thrown. I mean, the idea they have thrown is that let all the states agree on what they can bring, then they'll bring it to the table. Let for federal government alone. Federal government can start with 200,000 for its workers without any challenge. But the challenge, the problem we have is the state. Can some state pay 50,000 as minimum wage, even though some have moved it to 40? Some pay 80. So at the end of the day, it will become something that the state have to agree with federal government, then Labour also agreeing together with federal government that this is what we can give. This 200,000, we know we cannot get it. Can we go for 120? Can we go for 80? Then don't forget that we also have the private sector. Nigeria National Employment Consultative Forum, which belong to the private sector. They also have to come in, because it's not just government alone that has been abscond in paying this minimum wage. Private sector too also have to come in into this aspect of our wage policy. And that's where I think that at the end of the day, whatever we agreed on, it must be something that will be national and have a national outlook, which Labour is also looking forward to. But for the refinery, they are very, very specific on that refinery. When they meet the government, and they say it must work. And that's why the president said December, God willing, it will work. But let's hope that it will not be something that it will be a rhetoric talk.
Exactly, because that is how many months
NNPC have taken us on this route many times, shifting the goalpost, and we never achieve. I mean, NNPC. There is NNPC here. I'm taking on this route for a very long time. We have never achieved. And thank God the GMD was there. We just hope that it will walk the talk of the president by making sure it will work. And as I said on this platform before, the president have to commission an independent panel to go and visit those refineries. So to
yes.
do a fact finding on it, because we
Fact-finding.
can't just be relying on NNPC saying this one is ongoing, that one is ongoing, and there's no pictorial or document to show that most of these things are happening at those refineries.
Well, thank you so much for that. So this mass protest for now, and how do you react to these court contempt charge being filed against Labour?
I think at the end of the day, we just
Is it not going to exacerbate the situation?
Definitely. Now we are hoping that the minister will be appointed. Minister of Labour will be appointed and can sit with Labour, whereby the government can withdraw that case. That is the only solution. If it can be withdrawn within now and next week to solve the problem. And again, you know,
and in any case, where would the federal government, of course, it started with under the past administration, using courts to guard Labour protest.
It's not that they are using it to guard protest. If they are using it as a result of the industrial law that we have in the country. If a worker go on protest or go on strike, he won't be paid. That's just the angle they are trying to bring up. That even if you go to court, if you go on strike, and the court say don't go on strike, know that if you eventually go and come back, you won't be paid. That is the attention that government is trying to draw on. But we just want to hope that they can quickly withdraw the case and solve it out of court matter, so that you can have a very smooth ride for the government.
Right. Now, yesterday, just like Labour, just when Labour was protesting, we also have that the president submitted 19 other ministerial nominees to the National Assembly. Of course, MEPAs are leading with some of the nominees today. But one interesting paper that I want you to, a headline I want you to look at is the Guardian's headline story: Cabinet size near 70 as Tinubu ignores force for link government. And of course, that was what the discourse yesterday. That at the end of the day, we are still going to have a bloated cabinet. We thought Tinubu will take another part to that.
I think why this is happening at this first instance of the government is that they are just coming in. There's political pressure from everybody that have said, I contributed this, I did this to ensure that we have this victory. I want to believe that in the next 2 years, he's going to do something by streamlining his cabinet, because the cost of running
and
such a bogus
they even said they were going to create more ministries.
Ministry, or they are going to for ministries. I'm not yet sure they will do that, because we already have about 36 of them existing. What they may do is to attach, maybe like we have in the past, where we have 3 people manning a particular ministry. I know in the past we have Minister of Foreign Affairs that will have about 3 ministers. The main minister, there will be a second minister, there will be a third minister, and they will be given different portfolio in that same ministry. I think that will happen. That's what we think will happen. And again, there are some other ministries that have been together before. Maybe it's going to separate them, like information and culture. It may eventually separate the two, because in the past they existed individually. But it was very exactly, even sport and youth and sport, they were separated. I mean, they were different before the Buhari government brought them together. Maybe at the end of the day, and I saw it because the number of young people that are already in the government now will show that this could happen. That we are going to separate some ministries that were jointly together by Buhari, but before Buhari and the government, they were not together. I think that will be what will happen. Not that creating a new one.
But this bloated government, you know, it's not too much. In a situation whereby that is what protest is all about, that many of these monies that would have been meant for governance is being channeled to service these
set of people
again.
Even though we want to have this kind of number, can we work on their remuneration and reduce it? You understand? Like now, a minister is earning about 940 something thousand
Indigi.
And even there's a document that showed that was there. Now, can we divide into 3?
No, even the salary is not even the issue. We are talking about every other emolument
that means you're not spending in that particular office. What they, those ones, even by allowances,
every other thing, maybe hazard
and the rest of them,
and all what
put together. Definitely, it is very high. But by the time we work on the salary, the salary is even the bogus. Now 44,000. By the time you put all the allowances together, now up to 500,000 a month. That some of them earn. But where they normally get money is not all these ones. Is the contract splitting they normally carried out in the government. The favoritism that some of them conceive and give out to their friends, and that's where they make money. And the cornering of some of those contracts.
My guest said that influence spending.
Exactly. Whereby someone wants to see the president and say, you have a tag, you have to pay something amount. I think it happened in the past that when President Jonathan was in power, that certain people want to pay, they said they asked them to pay certain amount in foreign currency. I think those are the areas they make money. But to start with, to even douse the tension among labor is that this bogus salary they are earning. Now, can we slash it? If we do that, allowances are there. Nobody will complain about that because civil servants earn allowances. Even the labor people that were talking, they also earn allowance. Even this strike protest that they did, they earn allowances.
Like
all those
even the National Assembly lawmakers, their job is on a permanent basis. Then why would they be paid the sitting allowances?
That's why we are saying that if you can work from
those other parts should be sponged up because it's a permanent job. You know, it's not like except maybe you say that in constitution states that they are just to meet, just like board members now that you meet giving allowance. That is how it is. So it's not whereby this is your job that you are being permanent, then you still be giving sitting allowance for that.
It goes into how we craft our laws, especially our wages and salaries.
Or how we interpret.
How it is being crafted, because it is the way it is written. Everybody will give different interpretation to it. If there's no written law that said sitting allowance should be paid, nobody will go and be paying sitting allowance because it is written there. But when we work on the laws and we craft it and we write it in a way that it will be simplified, that there's no more sitting allowance.
This is your job. You cannot just still be paid again for coming to sit in the national.
It's not even, people are not even complaining about it. This is the bogus one, 14,200,000 they are earning monthly. That people are even complaining that it's too much. We talk about it. What about newspaper allowance? What about dress allowance? What about accommodation? What about automobile, motor, the vehicle they will buy for them? All those are also included. But what we are saying is that we can start from those huge ones, slash it, then we will have enough to save for better development of Nigeria. But when we continue with this and be fighting those smaller ones, allowances are nothing. It's those bogus ones. But we almost not.
That's what I'm saying. That if you are going to move at, just sanitizing the day, all those irrelevant, you just be taking them out. You cancel them out.
Exactly.
Like these allowances that you talk about. You also have to tinkle it
exactly.
Because it cannot continue that the ones that are people that are being governed are just at the receiving end of the job. They are making sacrifices to keep you up there.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, Tinubu is not actually, it's just still also playing to the talent.
Definitely. I was trying to mention that the politics, the pressure of the politics of who contributed to his victory is what is making this to be bogus. I want to believe that in the next 2 years, if he can, he will reduce it, because by the time he check the well-being of the federal government, presidency alone, he will think twice, because it's a physicalist, and physically
at the time that Nigeria is we are not buoyant.
Not that we are not buoyant. We want to be a little bit miser in how we spend money. The government is earning money. In June alone, we earn 1.65 trillion as revenue, and out of it, 125 billion comes from fuel. The rest comes from taxes. Non-oil sector. So we want to think how we can be able to spend this money wisely. So the bogus of this of people appointed into government, I want to believe that in the next 2 years, just look at it and reduce it. But because the pressure of the people who work for it, you can see the numbers of former governor that was on the list. Those two guys nominated themselves. They would have nominated somebody. They nominated themselves to be there. So maybe in the next 2 years, if they are just using that opportunity to be sleeping and be snoring, he has to remove them, because we need active people. And I'm not expecting him to put some of them in very sensitive positions, ministries that will slow down the development of the country. You should not go and put somebody that was a former governor in Minister of Finance. We don't want that. Or someone from the Minister of Work. We don't want that.
All right, thank you so much. We have one more headline story to discuss, and that is on still on same Guardian. Abubakar leads ECOWAS mission for negotiation with Niger junta. What would have expected that it's Buhari that would have been sent?
No, the familiarity would have been too much.
But he's their kids and king.
Yes, his kids.
President Buhari always told us that it's from Niger, that if Nigeria disturbs him too much, he will just go and stay with his people. What would have expected that it's him that he would have sent, given that he's from there, they are his people. Exactly.
And again, he has not served in any of this African Union or ECOWAS, and putting his voice into some of the issues across African continent. People like Abubakar led some ECOWAS, AU negotiations across the continent. So they find.
But don't you think that he has better do a rethink, being the fact that he has come back, he has served 2 terms. He cannot just return into his be a recluse like he was before he came on set, because this time around he has to
be active as a statesman, African statesman, and show. I want to believe that apart from this official one that ECOWAS is doing, he may on his own initiate a
Yes,
bid to also talk to some of them. He may even be doing it without us knowing, without official portal picking a
and that's why I
satellite.
expect that he too would have also have been on talking about it.
As
But he's been quiet.
very well. Although Abubakar is heading ECOWAS, maybe AU may think towards Buhari and have another group that Buhari is going to lead. If AU is not doing that, maybe United Nations will pick him and other top African leaders that are still alive and use them, because this is just an ECOWAS one. Maybe AU will think of using Buhari.
Now ECOWAS gave 7 days deadline, while AU gave 14 days. How come both of them are not in sync?
It's an opportunity of window of negotiation. It's an opportunity to still talk and talk, because the military action is the last resort, and military action cannot happen even after that 14 days, because United Nations are weighing on these issues, other world power weighing on this issue. And the problem is that we don't want an escalation. Usually northern African countries have also spoken, like Algeria have spoken and said, no, we are not going to support anybody in this essence. We are not going to, because the Malian juntas and they want to appeal to the Algerians to help them, because Algeria is not also in good town with France, with military, and what they say, no, we are not going to support anybody. And I believe that this is an opportunity for everybody to sit down and write up and say, this is what we want, this is what we want to do. Okay, I know what will happen at the end is to give them a 2 years grace or a 1 year grace, just like what they give to Burkina, Mali, and the rest of them. So in 2 years, initiate a democratic governance and election into process. I think that will end up being the resolution after all these meetings at the end of the day.
Now, what are the implications of military intervention? Because David Udein tweeted that yesterday that they were already military was already warming up for airstrike against Niger. We don't know how to
I don't believe in that, because what he was relying on was the ECOWAS chief of defense meeting that is taking one took place in Abuja here. The another one is already taking place in Niger, in Niamey right now. I think that was what he was privy to, and was saying that there's going to be an airstrike. Who have the airstrike power? Is it Nigeria to Kano that we're going to be using? Other West African countries don't have air power like Nigeria, and Nigeria have not shown any interest in any military action. That's why I see that they are looking at let us stop, and let us stop. So his own information.
And what happens when that 7 days elapsed and the junta representative is not ready to ship them?
You remember in Guinea, that was the same ultimatum they gave them. It elapsed, nothing happened, no military action. In Burkina, the same thing. In Mali was even more severe. That they would say ECOWAS and AOU, we are going even almost 30 days or thereabout. And they say no. They even shifted it to about 60 days. They say no. Then that's okay. This is okay. What do you guys really want? And the military say, okay, let us see how we can reorganize and flush some bad things. And then in 2 years time, we're going to organize election. And they give them the opportunity. And the 2 years are now expired. And that's why they are still in government. I think that will be the same thing that will happen to the Niger Republic. But the challenge is this: the Malian military government, those guys are already acquiring wealth for themselves. The same thing will happen to this guy. What those military guys will do, they will acquire wealth. They will make sure that they have enough money, and one of them will just drop and become a civilian and just for become a and that's what will happen. And that's what the Malian people are. That's what they are planning for. The Guinea, the same thing. Burkina be the same. By the time you see, they will just transform and say, okay, we want to contest for the election. At the end of the day, they will win, and the same people will remain in power.
But however, since the military takeover in Burkina, we've seen less of terrorist activities in the state, in the country. Sorry.
Definitely, because they tighten up their security nose around the Sahara aspect of their country, the northern part of Burkina. They put a lot of security check, especially with the support of the Wagner private military, because the Wagner private military is one that is helping Mali to secure the northern aspect of the country. Burkina Faso the same thing. Guinea doesn't have that challenge, and they want to introduce the same for Niger, to tidy up the northern aspect so that jihadist bandits will not be coming to that country. I think that those are the things that the guys are looking for.
In other words, there's a benefit.
There's a benefit, but the other aspect is that the economy is not yet better for the people. The people are still languishing in poverty. All challenges still there, education is still there. So infrastructure is still in the decay in those countries, because most of them don't have. They are locked down countries. They are not countries like Nigeria that have sea that can import. They still depend on some of our products produced there for their country. So they are still having challenges in that regard. We just hope that the military guys will be more. They will show integrity. They will not accumulate wealth at the expense of the people.
Just before, it seems like in Africa, mostly, or West Africa this time around, have almost similar problems, because we read that Niger is rich with that 7 producer of uranium.
Exactly.
It just supplies to France. Yet it has not been able to harness this for its development. What is happening?
The issue is that there is this connection between governance and development. There's this connection between development and money that is coming that for a country end. Instead of them to use that money to transform their country, they are using the money to transform each individual's life. We can see the president is one of the richest African leaders. The same thing with other ones, including our. Yeah, exactly. So instead of using that money to transform their country, they are using their money to just feed themselves and to take care of themselves.
That is an African problem. It's the same thing we have in Nigeria.
Nigeria, Congo, all those African countries, they have potential resources. They don't use the earnings from those resources to transform their people. Rather, they use to turn their people into more poverty. The same thing here. It's only Nigeria that's even trying that. We are even seeing small things. If you go to those countries, they don't have any. Recent report by Conversation Africa, one of the popular online news outlets that normally release report, and Crisis Group. I know you are aware of Crisis Group too. One of the leading international. If you read the report they are giving about development in all these countries, you'll be shocked that upon all these resources, what is happening to these people? Nothing is happening to them, and they don't have any say. That's why they believe they have to come in and say, we want to crush corruption, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to do that. But we just hope that they too will not be embellished.
Because we had that the mantra President Buhari used to come into office in 2015 that there was going to be a change, but at the end of the day, corruption
swallow every one of them.
All of them and flourish on that day. Well, thank you so much for your presence here today. It's always nice having you on the program. Viewers, this is where we come to the end of today's Inside Nigeria, reaching you on Leadership Television. My name is Winifred Webo, and hopefully tomorrow I'll be here to have another guest in the house to discuss headline stories. Still, I come your way again same time tomorrow. Bye.
Be part of our brand.
So I will maybe before the end of the day.
Leadership for God and country.
What about that one?